this the best you can do?
I'm the hero here, not you.
I asked for an equal. And this is what you find.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we are finally talking about the brand new game from Insomniac Games, Spider-Man 2. Honestly, I actually beat this game a little while ago, but we went on vacation and then I was trying to wrap up the editing on my Phantom Liberty DLC from Cyberpunk 2077. You guys should definitely check that video out. But before we get into today's video, I'm Falso21. I love making videos and I love playing video games. So if you guys enjoy the content, enjoy the video, be sure to leave me a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, real quick before we jump into it, I do want to drop a spoiler warning here for all those that have either not beaten the game yet or have yet to play Marvel's Spider-Man 2, as we are definitely talking about major spoilers in this video. So if you haven't done it yet or haven't played it, beaten it, go do that first and come back to this video. So to kick things off, let's talk about the story. The story here is just freaking awesome and probably has one of the most epic openings in a video game I've played in a while. You're like fighting Sandman and he's destroying the city. It was just, all of it was so freaking awesome and epic. The whole intro itself was just super fun, intense. It was a great way to start off the game. The next big villain that you run into fairly quickly is Kraven. And honestly, before the release, I have to admit, I had some reservations about Kraven the Hunter. I know his character, I don't know a whole lot about him. I just know that all of the times I've seen him in like the cartoon and stuff like that, I just never was a big fan of him personally. But man, they absolutely nailed his character here. Kraven was such a great villain. And I also really liked how they mixed Venom into the story with Kraven. From what really started out as a Kraven versus all the Spider-Man villains to Kraven versus Spider-Man to Kraven versus Venom, with the big battle ending with Kraven and Venom duking it out. Like, honestly, the whole fight between the two was one of the highlights of the game. It was so sick and so epic. I also really enjoyed how Peter gets the symbiote suit. If you guys recall, at the end of the first Spider-Man game, we see Harry in the tank, green tank with the symbiote swimming around him. So Harry does start out with the symbiote suit, and I just really enjoyed how Peter eventually gets it. And even better yet, when Harry gets the symbiote back from Peter. Oh, so good. That said, I personally really enjoyed the decision to have Harry be Venom or have the symbiote, just because it's Spider-Man's best friend, Peter's best friend, and so I loved the tension that was there and the conflict, and it just made the whole like story that much more impactful, at least for me personally. And man, like I said, with Harry getting the symbiote back, we officially get to see him as Venom, as we don't really see Venom as we know him as until Harry gets the symbiote back. Two things. One, I was totally not expecting to play as Venom. I thought that was just going to be a cutscene and we would see Harry fully transform into Venom. But to actually play as him and just cause havoc and just destroy the center of whatever that they're in, it was just mind-blowing. I thought it was so sick. I personally didn't see it coming. I was like, oh, then we're just going to play as Miles and Peter, and then we'll have our occasional Mary Jane quest. That's it. And two, it was literally the coolest part of the entire game. Until, you know, a little bit later, and then more insane stuff happens. And honestly, the fight between Kraven and Venom was so freaking cool. And honestly, for me personally, this version of Venom is just so freaking sick. It's just one of my favorite versions of the character. I liked it more than some of the games and cartoons that we had in the past. I love it more than Tom Hardy's Venom. Like, this version of Venom is just truly, like, straight up evil and scary. No jokes or funny moments, at least from Venom. It's just monstrous and evil, and I really love that. The last arc, I mean, if you want to call it arcs, the last little part of the game was also really great. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing the entire city and Venom trying to take over the entire city with his symbiote. All the voice acting was really well done, especially Peter or Spider-Man. I think his name's Yori Urenthal. I probably totally butchered that name, but he did a awesome job as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. Actually, in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, like, all of the characters did really well, especially Kraven. His voice actor was awesome, and Venom. Like, I don't know who they got to play Venom, but he sounded freaking scary. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it'd be really interesting to see what they decide to do and which direction they go with the next Spider-Man game, Spider-Man 3, or maybe they'll even do like another Miles Morales spin-off game. Because first off, Kraven like straight up kills half of the Spider-Man villains. Like they're just all gone now. And then Venom is presumably dead. Kraven is definitely dead. And then Norman Osborn at the end teases some sort of team up, or maybe even Sinister Six with Doc Ock. And then on top of that, we get Cletus Cassidy gets the symbiote. And for those who don't know, he becomes Carnage later, which is the spawn of Venom. He's the red one. Everyone sees the red one. He's insanely more powerful than Venom, and like 100 times more evil. And on top of that, at the very end of Spider-Man 2, Peter just decides he wants to quit being Spider-Man. Yeah, there's just no chance that Miles even stops half of these guys. Like, don't get me wrong, I personally liked Miles, and I really enjoyed his character growth in this game. I don't know. I just don't see him taking on the Sinister Six, at least not without Peter's help. Now, some of the cons that I had with the game, and story specifically, is for me personally, the game felt just a tad bit short. I know that it was supposed to be about as long as the first game, definitely longer than Miles Morales, but maybe it's just because the game was really good. I just didn't want it to end, because when I finally wrote those credits, I was like, man, I still want more. I personally wish that we had a few more chances with Venom, either a few more run-ins, or maybe another mini boss battle before the final boss battle. It just would have been nice to have more interactions with Venom, as pretty much right as he turns into Venom and we get that very epic moment I talked about earlier, he kind of disappears for a little bit, and then we don't see him again till the very end of the game. So I just wish that we had a few more run-ins with him. Would have been perfect. All of the main campaign story missions I thought were all really well done. You do switch off between Miles and Peter at various different times throughout these missions, so you're not just playing the whole game as Peter or the whole game as Miles. There's certain missions that flip-flop between the two. That said, some of the side content or side missions is kind of hit or miss, at least for me personally. Like, for example, I really enjoyed the Flame side missions that had to do with the group called the Flame. I really enjoyed the Howard mission, RIP to Howard. But then there's some other missions that just weren't very good. So for example, you play as Miles for some of the missions, and it's not necessarily the Miles missions, it's just the school missions in particular. Like, all of the ones that revolved around Miles' school, they were bad. They were terrible. I didn't like a single one of them. Like, for example, one of the missions, you're helping one of the students ask their boyfriend to prom, and then the other one, you're going around and finding clues because the science class some rival school stole the stuffed animal mascot thing, and so you're trying to, I don't know, just both those missions were the top off my head, and they're just so dumb. There's a couple of them, but literally all of the school missions I was just not a big fan of, not a single one. And then there's another mission where you play as Miles' deaf girlfriend, which that whole playing as Miles' girlfriend was just not on my bingo card, honestly. And the mission was so bad. You just walk around and there's 3 or 4 different graffitied walls, and you paint over them. You graffiti over them, I guess. They were just terrible missions, and honestly, I personally did not like either of those. But really, outside a handful of side content, which thankfully all of the missions that I didn't really like are just all side content, all of the main missions were fantastic. All of the Kraven missions, fantastic. All of the stuff with Venom, super fantastic. The main campaign overall was just really well done, and absolutely loved the story. As far as the gameplay goes, it's pretty much the same as the previous games, and that's Miles Morales and Spider-Man 1, which I personally didn't mind. I was able to jump right back in and kind of already knew how the game worked. As far as things that were added, I really enjoyed the new symbiote powers that Peter gets. When Peter finally does get the Venom symbiote, he gets Venom powers, which we've seen in the trailer where he's picking up a bunch of dudes and slamming them down. So you get a whole new 4 abilities with Peter, so that all those abilities were really cool. Same with Miles. It's not called Venom, I'm drawing a blank on it, but it's basically upgraded Venom powers, where now instead of your typical electric style shocking powers, you now have blue lightning, which is story kind of related with Mr. Negative, but both of them get upgraded powers, and they were really fun. I enjoyed using them pretty much all of the time and spamming them. I tried to save them all up and so I could just DPS dump all the abilities at once. They also added the web wings so that you, when you're flying across town, you have like the webbed armpit stuff, and then also added like wind tunnels, so the traversal was much more fast paced than it was in the previous games. And just swinging through the city is just so much fun. I know there's a fast travel system in it. To be honest, I don't even know how to use the fast travel system because it was just so much more fun to swing across the city, even if it was all the way across the map. It was just so much fun to swing around as Spider-Man. They also got rid of the weapon wheel, or the gadget wheel that Spider-Man had, that you had several different gadgets, which honestly I didn't even notice until I read somebody, or I saw somebody talked about it on Twitter, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess they did get rid of that. And they got rid of a few other gadgets, which personally I didn't really mind because there was a lot of gadgets and I only really used like 2 or 3 that I personally really liked. So having it narrowed down to just a few gadgets, I personally didn't mind. Obviously I didn't notice. They also added the web line, which is new, which made it a little bit easier to stealth take down enemies. There's many different times I pretty much stealth took down an entire camp. Or as far as enemies go, they're kind of more or less the same, how do I say, like the same style as the ones before. Like for example, you have like your ones that run up and try to punch you and fight you. You have like your mid-range, I would say, that have batons or swords, stuff like that, that can go in and out of close range and mid-range, I would say. And then you have those enemies that are obviously up on high, trying to shoot you with snipers and guns. And then you have your typical big brute that comes in every now and then. So very similar to that, it's just that now we have that same style with Kraven's Men, and we have that same style with Venom's symbiote army and a few other like prime bosses. So pretty much the same, just different enemies, and they're actually tough. Like some of the Venom symbiotes that you fight, as well as Kraven's Men, not that they were hard, but if I wasn't paying attention or if I was just kind of spam attacking, they would knock down my health bar. Which they also added a parry in the game, and there are some enemies that have to be parried. Granted, the parry window is extremely wide and super easy to parry. It's not difficult like it would be in like a Souls game or Sekiro or something like that. So very easy to learn. Yeah, overall I felt like we had a pretty decent variety of enemies. The combat is just so fun and fluid, and swinging around, spinning your webs, using your abilities was just a lot of fun. I got lost so many times just running around through the city and just fighting random Sandman's dudes or Venom's dudes, like, so it was a lot of fun. But the best part of all of the enemies is the bosses. Some of the best parts of the game were the bosses. And man, all the boss fights were super fun, very cinematic, very epic. I think of the intro Sandman fight, the lizard fight were both very well done, super fun to do. And actually, like I said earlier, with some of the enemies, some of them were actually hard, and I did die quite a few times to some of the bosses. Specifically the Venom fight towards the end, the Kraven fight, and the lizard fight for some reason was just kicking my butt. Like I mentioned, Venom and Kraven were definitely the highlights of the game. But also fighting Mr. Negative as Miles was also super fun, as well as more or less Peter versus Miles. That was a lot of fun when Miles is trying to help Spider-Man get the Venom symbiote off of him. That whole fight was very impactful, very emotional. I don't think I had any issues with really any of them. Plus, all of these boss fights with the Venom suit and all of their abilities was just so freaking fun to use. Like I said, it goes back to the combat. Combat was very fun and fluid. I enjoyed using it quite a bit. Talking a little bit about the open world, or the city, New York City, that Spider-Man and Miles Morales swing around in. It definitely feels much bigger. I believe they said they added Queens, and I want to say Brooklyn. I don't remember all the boroughs, but regardless, as I mentioned earlier, just the traversal is a lot of fun, especially with the addition of the web wings and the wind tunnels. You can get going so fast through the city, like way faster than both of the previous games, going from one end of the city to the other. I never really used the fast travel system. It was just so much more fun to just swing around as Spider-Man. I haven't really touched on this, and that doesn't really go with the world, but Miles Morales and Peter Parker both have a ton of suits. There's some returning suits from both of the previous games, as well as a lot of new suits. They do add all of the movie suits, of course. I am a big fan of the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, so I loved the web suit. Some of the other suits I really enjoyed for Peter Parker was the Venom suit, as well as the anti-Venom suit. Pretty simple, but I just love the Venom suit. The black suited Spider-Man is just so cool. And then as for Miles Morales, I am totally drawing a blank on it, but it's like the futuristic Miles Morales suit where he's got like the headphones on and like the dome kind of helmet. the big jacket. Looks like he's like a DJ. It looks really cool. I think I have video of it. I'll throw it on screen somewhere here, but that suit was really cool. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the Into the Spider-Verse suits, so I equip that quite a bit of times as well. I don't know, I'm just a fan of just this typical black and red suit. Looked really cool. Speaking of suits, they also got rid of all of the suit abilities. I remember in the first game, and I want to say Miles Morales, they had different suits had different perks or abilities to them. They got rid of all of that, and now the suits are purely just for fashion. I did say this earlier, but they do have a fast travel in the game. To be honest, I could not tell you how to actually fast travel because I never did it, but I did it one time at the very beginning. Oh no, you could switch between Miles and Peter freely while you're in the open world. Like I said, there are missions that do require you to play as either Miles or Peter, but as you're just going around the open world, you could choose between the two. The transfer to go from Peter's to Miles is instant. Like, it's crazy how fast it is. There's also various open world activities. Some can, like I said, can only be done by Miles or Peter. They do bring back the Mary Jane missions, which for some reason people like to complain about them. I personally thought that the Mary Jane missions were really good. I liked all the stealth. I liked that they gave her like this electric taser gun. It looks more than just a taser gun. Like, it looks intense. I really enjoyed those missions. Overall, I thought the open world, or the world of New York City, the big city, I thought was really fun. I loved the activities. I loved swinging around as Spider-Man. Last thing I do want to talk about is the game's performance. Overall, I ran into very little issues during my playthrough. There are a few times that it looked like Mary Jane's face didn't quite load properly. At least that's what I'm guessing, because there's some parts that she looked really weird or just like missing, I don't know, textures or something. She just looked like out of some horror movie. I don't know. And that happened a few times, but then later in the game, it seemed she looked fine again. So there's that. And then there's also one time that the game actually crashed on me completely. It was right as I turned on the game. I hadn't even started anything. I basically pushed start, was swinging around New York for like maybe a minute, and then the game crashed. So it wasn't like a huge deal, but it still happened. So other than that, everything was pretty minor, and honestly, I didn't really recall anything other than those instances. So if there was anything else, I didn't personally notice it, and obviously it wasn't game breaking or anything like that. Spider-Man 2 is so freaking good. I thoroughly enjoyed the game. The combat was really fun. The boss battles were so cinematic and very epic. Kraven and Venom were just incredible villains. I had a great time with the story. I loved playing as the black-suited Spider-Man, Spider-Man with the symbiote, and I also loved the growth that we got to see with Miles. I loved his character growth and him becoming more of a mature Spider-Man. And that is why I'm going to give Spider-Man 2 a 9 out of 10. And honestly, the only things that really dragged the game down for me is, one, it just felt really short, and it's not really that it was short, it's just that I felt like we didn't get enough time with Venom, and that could just be me wanting more screen time with Venom, but I felt like we saw the epic transformation with Harry, and we got that super cool moment where we got to be Venom and cause havoc and fight Kraven, and then we just don't really see him again until the end of the game. So I just wish that we had a few more run-ins, maybe a mini boss battle here or there before we get to the big finale. Would have been perfect. And then another thing that kind of drug the game down for me is some of the side content I felt was kind of hit or miss. All of the high school missions I just thought were just terrible. I'm gonna be honest, I did not like them at all. Some people might like it, and that's totally fine, but for me personally, I wasn't feeling it. But like I said, overall, the game overall, I just had an absolute blast. And if you guys have a PlayStation 5, this is a must-play game. It is absolutely incredible. It's literally been one of my favorite games that I've played this year. And 2023 has been jam-packed full of just excellent games. And I'm currently actually trying to get the Platinum Trophy for it, and that's how much I love this game. It's kind of an easier platinum too, by the way, but still, I just want to be in this world even more. But that is going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys made it this far, you're freaking awesome. I appreciate all the support that you guys show me, and let me know down in the comments below if you guys have played Spider-Man 2. What was your favorite part of Spider-Man 2? There's so many great moments in this game. I'm curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, show us some support, drop a like on the video, and consider subscribing to the channel. And we'll catch you guys on the next video.